In today's world, a good heart alone is not enough to succeed and survive. The belief that good deeds automatically lead to success is a dangerous illusion that many people, while aware of it, are unwilling to recognize. Remember how often you have encountered situations where others have taken advantage of kindness for their own benefit. How often noble deeds went unnoticed, or even turned against you. Since childhood, we were taught that honesty and integrity will always be rewarded, but the harsh reality of life says otherwise. The world is arranged in such a way that success accompanies not just good people, but those who skillfully use the circumstances in their favor. This is where the figure of Machiavelli comes to the fore. Machiavelli, unlike many, realized that human nature is inherently selfish, changeable, and, if necessary, cruel. In his work, The Sovereign, he emphasizes that virtue, devoid of cunning, turns into weakness, and kindness without a clear strategy becomes a trap. Think about how many times you have fallen into such traps. Think of those who are admired, those who have achieved outstanding results. Is it possible that their triumph was due solely to good intentions? Rather, their success was the result of their ability to act covertly when the situation demanded it. They realized that moral principles can be not only a constraint, but also a useful tool that can be used to their advantage. The ability to display or conceal one's morality was the decisive factor that distinguished a powerful player from a mere pawn. The problem is not the presence of virtue, but the inability to protect oneself from detractors. Many people mistakenly believe that those around them adhere to the same rules of honesty and integrity. However, the world is full of predators, skillfully disguised as friends, and opportunists who can smell naivety from afar. In such an environment, a person who does not realize the danger becomes an ideal target. It is in this context that Niccolò Machiavelli proposes an alternative approach: reasonable kindness. It is not about becoming a villain or betraying one's own beliefs, but about understanding the need to combine kindness with a deep awareness of the reality of the situation. It is important to learn to understand people, to anticipate their intentions, and to be able to distinguish sincerity from hypocrisy. Machiavelli argued that if it is not possible to inspire love and fear at the same time, it is preferable to inspire fear. What was the reader's choice? He probably sought universal love and acceptance, wanting to appear harmless in the eyes of others. But what did he achieve along the way? Far from respect or influence. Rather, he was confronted with the fact that others had learned to take advantage of him without remorse, for goodness, when not backed up by strength, is not admired, but only sympathized with. The author does not urge the reader to abandon kindness as such. He only emphasizes the need to learn to show it without losing vigilance and discernment. One should realize that the world does not always favor the just, but generously rewards those who are able to see the essence of things. True virtue lies not in blind obedience, but in the ability to find a balance between moral principles and pragmatic considerations. As Machiavelli taught, perception is crucial. What matters is not only who a person really is, but also how he appears to others. By giving the impression of weakness, he will inevitably face neglect. At the same time, by demonstrating strength and confidence, he will earn respect. How often has the reader allowed others to be disrespectful for fear of losing their favor? How many times has he chosen to remain silent, avoiding conflict, only to then realize that this tactic brings more losses than gains? It's not about cultivating ruthlessness. It's about developing a strategic mindset. It's important to be able to identify the right moment to act, speak, retreat, or attack. Kindness can be a valuable asset if used wisely, but uncontrolled manifestation of this quality can turn against you. Many sincere people mistakenly believe that the world prioritizes purity of intention, but this is far from the truth. In today's world, power, a sense of security, and the ability to make tough decisions are valued. Kindness only begins to be respected when it is backed by power and authority. If you don't have influence, your kindness loses all meaning. As Machiavelli would say, Don't be like a defenseless lamb in a wolf pack and let your moral principles turn you into a powerless slave. True virtue does not lie in blind obedience, but in a developed intellect. It is important not to passively adapt to circumstances, but to shape the environment so that it works in your favor. Think about it. How long will you allow the world to abuse your kindness? How long will you remain a victim of your own naivete? This is not about giving up on kindness per se. In today's world of laws and rules, it is essential to learn how to adapt and interact effectively with your surroundings. It is about developing the ability to be flexible, to think and act strategically in order to maximize the benefits for yourself and your environment. It is important to recognize when to be humble and stay in the shadows, and when to show confidence and strength. The world is not always fair, but by learning its rules, you can learn to play the game without losing your individuality and moral principles. Niccolo Machiavelli, creating his famous treatise The Sovereign, aimed not to teach the reader evil, but to warn and arm the reader with the knowledge necessary to survive and succeed in difficult political conditions. The key here is the realization that kindness and honesty alone are not enough to achieve one's goals. It is necessary to develop intelligence, the ability to analyze the situation and make informed decisions based on realities, not illusions. Special attention should be paid to the concept of power perception. In modern society, it is not enough to possess strength and intelligence. It is important to be able to demonstrate these qualities. Perception plays a huge role, and often the way you are seen by others is more important than the actual situation. As an example, there have been numerous cases of incompetent people reaching the top of their careers by skillfully manipulating public opinion and creating the appearance of competence, while talented and hardworking professionals went unnoticed. This is clear evidence that the ability to make an impression and create the right perception can be a powerful tool for success. In fact, success is rarely accidental. People tend to follow not those who are kind or fair, but those who give the impression of being in control. They look for leaders who can skillfully manage their image, who exude authority and confidence even if they don't have the full range of answers. It is at this point that many fail. They mistakenly believe that truth and competence speak for themselves, but the reality is that the world does not reward those who are right, but those who can convincingly present their side of the story. Niccolo Machiavelli, an outstanding thinker, was keenly aware of this principle. What matters is not only who a person really is, but also how people around him or her see him or her. Perception plays a key role. A leader who is insecure is unable to inspire confidence, even if he or she has outstanding training. An employee who can't attract attention is unlikely to be promoted, even if he or she excels at his or her job. A man or woman who cannot demonstrate his or her value will go unnoticed, even if he or she has something to offer. Thus, the secret of success lies not only in developing your own qualities, but also in the ability to tell a convincing story about yourself, control your image, and create the right impression in each particular situation. Here we are not talking about banal deception, but rather about skillful management of the attention of others, directing it in the right direction. After all, in any social interaction, people perceive the world not objectively, but through the prism of their own prejudices, emotions, and expectations. And the main question is how to use these filters. Should we let them play against ourselves, or turn them in our favor? If a person has kindness but appears weak, those around him will treat him accordingly. If he is fair but appears soft, he may simply be ignored. If he is talented but lacks self-confidence, his achievements may go unnoticed. It's all very clear. The art of perception management is what distinguishes those who control their own destiny from those who are adrift. Here we enter a more difficult but necessary territory: control over information. Have you ever wondered why those with power always know something that is not available to the rest of us? Why leaders always have an advantage? The answer is simple. They know how to keep silent in time and know when to speak up. Society believes that sincerity in all its manifestations is an unconditional good, that open expression of thoughts and generous exchange of information is a sign of virtue. However, as practice shows, information is a valuable resource with great power, and uncontrolled giving away of this power can lead to undesirable consequences. Niccolo Machiavelli, a famous political thinker, argued that a ruler must have the ability to conceal his true intentions, not because of a tendency to lie, but rather because of the need to survive in a world where everyone seeks personal gain. In such an environment, excessive candor makes a person an easy prey. Wisdom lies in the ability to control the flow of information, to share only the necessary and keep silent about the rest. Creating an aura of mystery keeps others guessing about your true thoughts and motives. As soon as you become completely predictable, as soon as your actions can be anticipated, you lose your strategic advantage. History shows that great figures in various fields, be it politics, business, or art, have recognized the power of strategic silence. The timing of silence can be just as effective as making a well-considered speech. Think of the image of a person of genuine admiration, a person whose influence is tangible and undeniable. Ask yourself what lies at the heart of his authority. Openness and directness in every word and action, or the ability to maintain a halo of mystery, saving trump cards up his sleeve. A common mistake is to equate transparency with weakness. Many people mistakenly believe that by not revealing all their cards, they are being dishonest. However, this is not a matter of lying, but of strategically managing information flows in one's own interests. Think back to the times when excessive candor has often backfired on you. Recall the times when trusting the wrong person led to unfortunate consequences. Remember how often you have felt the need to justify yourself by explaining yourself to those who did not deserve it. True strength lies not in the number of words spoken, but in the ability to choose the moments to speak up and the moments to remain silent. It is important to learn a lesson that many people ignore. Someone who is stingy with words and explanations gets more respect. Why? Because silence breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty in turn breeds curiosity. And curiosity is a powerful tool of influence. Excessive frankness, when a person without a word states all his thoughts, can tire others and lead to loss of interest in his person. Constant explanations and excuses for every action can give others the impression that the individual feels guilty or insecure. However, when words are spoken deliberately and only when necessary, when statements leave room for different interpretations, it attracts attention and arouses genuine interest. An important aspect is also the ability to surprise and be unpredictable. People whose actions and reactions are easy to anticipate become vulnerable to manipulation. Uniformity in behavior, predictability in responses and emotions allow others to calculate the steps of such a person and use it for their own purposes. Unpredictability, on the contrary, creates an aura of danger, making others treat them with respect and caution. Niccolo Machiavelli, an outstanding thinker, was well aware of this pattern. A leader whose intentions and actions are as transparent as an open book is doomed to weakness. At the same time, a leader who can maintain an aura of mystery, who is ready to change depending on circumstances, and who does not allow himself to be labeled, has strength and is able to hold on to power. So, the choice is up to everyone, whether to remain a transparent volume, available for reading and used by everyone who meets, or to turn into a sophisticated strategist, skillfully managing his image, information, and unpredictability to achieve their own goals. It's important to realize that kindness not backed by strategic thinking becomes a kind of invitation to exploitation. The reality is that the world is not going to change its laws to suit anyone, so we need to learn to play by the rules that actually work, not the rules we have been persuaded to believe. Successful application of these principles will allow us to break out of the role of a victim of the system and join the ranks of those who dominate it. However, an interesting aspect arises here: the art of strategic distance. There is a widespread opinion that in order to achieve power, it is necessary to be constantly in the center of attention, to be omnipresent and obsessively declare oneself. But in reality, excessive availability leads to devaluation. Scarcity creates desire, and absence creates effect. Why is it that some individuals inspire deep respect by their mere appearance, while others, despite their best efforts, never gain true authority? The key lies in the perception of their value by those around them. Niccolo Machiavelli, a perceptive thinker, argued that a sovereign should avoid excessive accessibility, not out of contempt for his people, but because excessive familiarity undermines the foundation of respect. When you are constantly in sight, when your gifts are unmeasured, people tend to take your presence, your efforts, and your generosity for granted. And this observation is true not only in the sphere of politics or power relations, but also in interpersonal relations, professional activity, and life itself. By giving too much, a person risks becoming expendable, and by being always available, he or she becomes a resource rather than a unique and valuable person. Think back. How many times have you given yourself wholeheartedly to someone, but your efforts went unnoticed? How many times have you been ready to help everyone, but at the moment when you yourself needed support, you were simply ignored? These questions make you think about the balance between generosity and self-worth. At the very core of human nature is a paradoxical relationship to abundance and scarcity. What pours over the edge often loses its value in the eyes of people, while scarcity and rarity are elevated to a cult. This is why it is vital to learn how to skillfully manage one's presence, manage the attention one pays to others, and control how one's own availability is perceived. It is not necessary to rush to respond to every request, nor is it necessary to be constantly on everyone's radar. It is important to create a situation in which absence is felt and presence is appreciated. When a person masters the art of disappearing at the right moment, when he or she knows how to manage his or her energy, people begin to feel the need for his or her company. A common mistake is the fear of disappearing from sight, the fear of being forgotten if one takes a step back. However, the harsh reality is this: if the only way to stay in people's memories is to be a constant presence, then there is no true value in that person. Those who truly make an impact on the world do not seek to outshout everyone else. They have the skill to utilize silence, to know when to retreat and when to reappear on the horizon. It is enough to look at the great figures of the past. Real leaders do not spread themselves thin. They do not exhaust themselves in every battle. They appear when it is really necessary, and at that moment, all eyes are on them. So, we come to another cornerstone of dominance: the ability to curb your feelings. This is where most people fail. Many people mistakenly believe that power is based on brute force, assertiveness, imposing their will by shouting and fists. However, true mastery, as Machiavelli brilliantly saw, lies in complete self-control. For the one who loses control of himself, who acts impulsively, giving in to anger or anxiety, becomes predictable, vulnerable to manipulation, and ultimately weak. Think back to the last time you were pissed off. In that moment when you were overcome with rage, when you reacted without thinking, who had the power in that situation? Obviously not you. The power belonged to the one who managed to throw you off balance, to provoke your reaction. And that's natural, because whoever controls your emotions also controls your actions. This is the essence. A person who cannot be driven out of his or her senses, who remains calm under any circumstances, is the true owner of power. In any communication, whether it is a lively discussion, important negotiations, personal relationships, or any other interaction in society, a person who knows how to control his emotions has an undeniable advantage. It is the ability to control his feelings that helps shape the perception that those around him have about him. Niccolo Machiavelli, an insightful thinker, emphasized that a wise person should always keep his cool and act deliberately. It is not a question of not having emotions, but of not letting them control you. It is important not to be like an animal that reacts blindly to external stimuli and is easy to manipulate. Skillful application of this principle makes a person virtually invulnerable. People around him may try to hurt him, provoke him, but if they do not manage to throw him off balance, anticipate his reaction, they lose control over the situation. The truth is that in any game, the winner is not the one who has brute force, but the one who remains calm when everyone around him loses his temper. This leads to another important aspect: the power of strategic patience. The desire for instant results is common to most people who crave immediate success, recognition, and power. However, as Machiavelli taught, and as the experience of great historical figures confirms, true power lies not in impulsive action, but in the ability to wait for the right moment to make a decisive move. The world is full of people who act rashly, who make decisions without considering the long-term consequences. But those who really control the course of events have patience, observation, and the ability to calculate their actions. Let us remember the hunter who does not rush to shoot at the first movement. He observes carefully, estimates the distance, waits until the prey is in the optimal position, and only then strikes a precise blow. In this game of power, the winner is not the one who starts first, but the one who acts at the most opportune moment. Machiavelli argued that the ability to adapt to circumstances requires not chaotic action, but the ability to determine when to speed up the pace and when to slow it down. In the hustle and bustle of life, there are often those who act under the influence of the moment, while far-sighted strategists patiently wait for the right time. A natural question arises. To which category does the reader belong? To those who rashly rush into battle, or to those who check every step, preparing to strike a crushing blow? After all, in today's world, superiority is not always on the side of the most nimble. It belongs to those who have a sharp mind, can manipulate public opinion and information, maintain distance, own their emotions, and show strategic patience. Having mastered these skills, a person ceases to be a pawn in someone else's game and becomes a full participant in it. The world around him is still cruel, but now he knows how to play by its rules. However, what distinguishes those who simply go with the flow from those who confidently control their own destiny? The answer is simple. The ability to become an exception to the rules, a kind of anomaly in the system. Now that the reader has knowledge and understanding, he or she realizes that kindness alone is not enough. Perception is what is crucial. Emotional control becomes a powerful tool of influence, and strategic patience allows impulsiveness to prevail. Scarcity, in turn, only adds value. However, what is the point of all these efforts if actions remain in line with accepted norms and practices? If the aspiration is to achieve different results, it is necessary to go beyond the usual, to become someone who does not obey traditional attitudes. It is not a matter of aimlessly breaking the rules, but of rethinking existing scenarios and creating new ones. The main difficulty for most people is thinking in a way that is limited by a framework that has been externally imposed. They stick to established patterns of behavior, react predictably, and act within accepted or expected boundaries. But those who really make an impact on the world, who change the rules of the game in their favor, are individuals who dare to be unpredictable, experiment with new approaches, and do things that no one could have foreseen. This is the key secret. The world is designed in such a way that it absorbs those who merely adapt to existing conditions. If an individual acts the same way as everyone else, the results will be similar, which inevitably leads to mediocrity and turns him or her into just another forgotten name in the vast stream of time. The secret of triumph lies in the ability to go beyond the usual, in the ability to act outside the template, surprising others with unpredictability. The winner always has a trump card up his sleeve, remaining a mystery to others. His words are weighty. Every statement is worth its weight in gold, and his opinion is listened to. The realization of this fact marks an internal transformation, a reassessment of his own strength. There comes the realization that previous failures were not due to personal weakness, but to a wrongly chosen strategy. Those around you ignored them not because of a lack of value, but because of an inability to demonstrate that value. But now the truth has been revealed, and this knowledge becomes a powerful weapon that cannot be reversed. By gaining control of his image, skillfully manipulating information, and using silence as a tactic, one begins to notice how the world around him is changing. Those who had not previously dignified attention become interested. Those who had underestimated begin to wonder what happened. In the past, the puppeteers who pulled your strings will now be wary of any move in your direction. The reason is simple. You are no longer a naive player, but a strategist who understands the rules of the game. Now you face a key question. Are you ready to put the knowledge you have gained into practice, or would you prefer to return to a cozy ignorance? After all, The watershed between those who succeed and those who lag behind is not in the amount of knowledge, but in the ability to act. Information, however interesting it may seem, will remain a useless burden if it is not translated into concrete steps. The choice is yours. Leave this knowledge to gather dust in the recesses of your mind, or start implementing it right now. However, it is worth remembering. Returning to the previous model of behavior is a conscious choice to remain in the shadows, to be unnoticed and ignored. But there is another way, a path of transformation that starts with small steps. Add a touch of mystery to communication. Curb the impulse to say too much. Learn to react cold-bloodedly, not emotionally. Retreat in time. Observe in silence instead of rushing headlong into battle. These small, seemingly insignificant actions will gradually change the perception of those around you. Unnoticed by you, they will turn you into a person who can no longer be ignored. The worldly record keeps in memory not those who were content with a simple existence, but those who grasped the art of the game of life and skillfully played it. A natural question arises. Are you ready to enter this playing field? If you have reached these lines, the author encourages you, those who have grasped the essence of the message, to leave the phrase "strength in silence" in the comments. This will be a test of your understanding of what it means to act thoughtfully and strategically. If what you have seen has planted a seed of doubt in you, made you look at familiar things from a different angle, subscribe to the channel, because this is just the beginning of the journey. See you soon in new videos, and remember, don't be just a pawn in the system. Strive to become the one who sets its